Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. I really enjoyed that conversation with Paige Roberts from the Jackson County Chamber. She's such a committed leader. She has so much to add to the conversation. She has a great board of directors. She works so closely with elected officials, and more specifically as it relates to Mayor Knight in Moss Point because of the tornado that went through there and affected so many people. She's been doubly engaged with him, but she was engaged with him long before that to help him with his community building goals and all of that. It's great to see, as I said, the leaders of the elected leaders all across coastal Mississippi working together for the betterment of their communities in this region. And you really get a flavor of that when you hear the conversation that Paige had with Jamie Miller, the CEO from the Gulf Coast Business Council, and their recognition of Mayor Knight and all of that stuff that's swirling there. It's all such positive, good stuff. It takes a lot of wonderful leaders like those folks that I just mentioned to make this place so wonderful. Another really wonderful leader in this state is the president and CEO of the Palmer Home. And if you've not heard my conversations with Drake Bassett before, I think you'll enjoy this incredibly committed group that he represents and what they're doing to help children in this state. But without any further ado, let me welcome Drake Bassett back to the Ricky Mathews Show. How you doing, Drake?
Doing great, Ricky, and it's a pleasure to be back with you, as always.
So look, as we were chatting about just before we started the show, for 12 years, this is the 12th annual Radiothon with SuperTalk Mississippi Media. 12 years. And of course, the very first year, this is about it's going on our fourth or fifth year of doing this show as we celebrate this incredibly important Radiothon that's coming up. But it's been a heck of a 12 years for you guys, hasn't it?
Really has. I think it just as you were talking earlier about collaboration, across the state and business leaders, and it takes everybody, right? I think SuperTalk made a great gesture and took a big step when they decided to do this. And probably, Steve would say, a little bit of a risk. Everything's a little bit of a risk. You never know quite where this is going to go. But what it has become is not only a major fundraising day for Palmer Home, but I think more importantly, it's become a day of where the community at large across Mississippi can participate and can stop and just acknowledge that, yeah, this is an aspect of every state, but certainly in Mississippi, there are children who need a place to call home. And, for us, that we do this all the time, every day, but it becomes a really special day because we hear from so many people who care about this, who think about these things, and want to get behind a program that, is doing its best to try and make a difference in children's lives. But I think it's a great character trait of Mississippi. I think it's a quality that speaks to the people, and so we love it.
I agree, and we have so many people that are willing to contribute. That's very important, of course. Hey, let's take a step back for a second. For people who have not heard us talk before, Tell them about Palmer Home.
Yeah, well, going all the way back, talking about years, going all the way back to 1895. Which is a long way back. We're actually in our 129th year. We're fixing to cross over to 130 next year. But, again, concerned people for a problem mobilized starting in Columbus, Mississippi. And they built what is called, in hindsight, an orphanage, 3-story building and supporting buildings and a boys' building and things like that. And for many, many years, all the way through the turn of the century and the Great Depression and World War I, World War II, all the way into the 70s and the 80s, Palmer Home was very active in Columbus on that campus and basically provided a place where children could go where the home life had come apart for whatever reason. And, when that happens, whether it's 1850, 1950, or 2050, when the family isn't able to function fully, that creates a problem for mostly for the children involved. And so we see ourselves as coming alongside these families to the best of our ability to create an opportunity for a child to experience safety. And sometimes it's not just safety. Sometimes it's just a more regulated environment, a situation where the chaos of sometimes family choices really can be disruptive. And when it's disruptive, all sorts of negative things happen. So we love the idea that a child can come here and can experience the peace and basically be a child, and ride a bike and go to school and, swim and play. And for us also, we're able to share faith. We're able to show them what that looks like and what we think it looks like and collaborate together. So creating childhoods, creating safe places and allowing children to thrive all the way up until the time they're 18 and beyond. And we do a lot of that now these days. That's what we're here for. And that's what we've always been here for.
How many kids are you currently serving?
We're serving well over 100 actively. We have 4 different service lines. I think we've talked about that a little bit before. We have a residential program where children coming directly out of a traumatic situation come to our campus. And on this campus, we have resources. We have the home and we have house parents. We have a school here on campus if necessary, if a child's missed 3 or 4 years of school, and that can happen. We have our counselors. We have mentors. We have all of our resources here to really focus on where is this child in their own story and what do we need to do. But from here, we begin to look for foster families that after a child is settled and doing well, and it doesn't look like reunification is going to happen, then we want to introduce a family that we've had time to do the background check, to do the vetting, to do the training, and let them come alongside. Because really, when it comes to foster care, I think in our minds, we're like, oh, foster care, that's the spinning wheel, right? I mean, 8 to 12 homes for most children in foster care is the national average. Well, we really go after it sort of a one and done mentality. If we can find the right family and that child can experience that family, that's wonderful. We also work with children who are 18 and older. The historic precedent, just by virtue of resources and just mentality, was when you're 18, handshake and off you go. And but you and I both know that children 18 to 22, and for us it's 18 to 24, they need help. They need coaching. They need to, they need guidance. They need to be able to pick up the phone once in a while and say, I'm trying really hard, but I've messed up. I received a nice text the other night from a young man I hadn't heard from in 2 years. And 2 years ago, he was just, it wasn't going well. And, and he sent something back and he said, I remember something you always said. He talked about the fact that your character shapes your destiny. And he remembered that. And anyway, he reached out to try to connect, and the point is we're here. We're here for that when a child finally finds their way. So we do that. And then, of course, we also, in the state of Tennessee, we work with women who are incarcerated, who have to make a decision on what they're going to do with their baby. And we have a number of foster families that are supporting those families, the women incarcerated, and we're caring for their children. And then we're helping them when they come out of prison, get on their feet and build a life. It's all about building a life. It's all about creating great outcomes. And wherever a family is on that journey, whether it's a blended family, whether it's a set of grandparents raising the next generation, whatever that is, we're here to help that.
Drake, do you and your team get numb at times to the realities that kids face? Yeah, I mean, for some of the stories you and I have talked about in the past are shocking and they're tear-jerking kinds of stories.
They are. How
do you navigate through those situations over the long haul the way you guys have?
I think that there's a couple of things. That's a great question because when you look at systems or you look at processes, and especially when you look sometimes at government things and you think, man, this is just a hamster wheel. Well, the reality is that for us, we are able, I think, not only to do the work, but one of the things that's a real benefit, I think, to our staff here that gets to work is you get to work with some of these children. You actually get to see and be with these children. I heard you talking about your vacation, and we were recently out west with 7 of our children that were identified by a partnering nonprofit, and we took them out west. They flew on the plane for the first time, some of them. They left the state for the first time. They saw the Grand Tetons, which are mind-blowing, and all that while, we're traveling together, we're experiencing new things, and we're trying to help them let their minds, but you're talking, and you're spending time together, and you realize that where they're standing in that moment, or if they're here on our campus and they're fishing out at the lake, or if you see them succeed in school or participate in sport, when you're walking side by side with children like that, that numbness gets diminished pretty quickly, because you get excited, you get passionate, you get thrilled for the possibilities of seeing children really get on their feet. And when that starts to happen, it really does keep you alive. So I think the fact that we're able to be close to children and see their circumstances is what's a game changer for us, and hopefully a game changer for them.
What an opportunity for the 7 kids that you took out there. I've been to Grand Tetons. I will be going back there again in the next week or so. But it's a place where it exceeds your ability to comprehend it. Is so beautiful. It's so incredible. Hey, when we come back on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with the president and CEO of the Palmer Home, Drake Bassett. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Mathews Show from the Citizens Bank studio. We have Drake Bassett from the Palmer Home with us. And when we went to a break, we're talking about taking the 7 kids to the Grand Tetons. And Drake, just real quick, I wanted to share something with you. I came across this morning in Time magazine, literally just this morning. I bookmarked it and held on to it. But it says it's a story that talks about how people relax around the world. And one of the ones that they share, let me get down to it. It's called forest bathing in Japan. And what it's about is about taking a quiet walk in the woods. And it talks specifically about what it does to improve your quality of sleep, your mood, even your immunity. And it just goes on to talk about this how trees can help you find health and happiness, and that it's part of the culture. And that's part of what you were engaging those kids in, isn't it?
That's right. It's really great to have a partner that makes that possible for, 7 or 8. But for all of our children, we have cattle on this property. We don't need cattle. Okay. We can go to the grocery store and buy beef. Why do we have that? So that they can walk out there and they can see how cattle, function, and they can work with the cows and they can be outdoors. We have a lake, and sometimes just going and walking along the edge of that lake it calms my system, brings my blood pressure down. But forest bathing, just being outside. And again, if you think about many of the kids who come to our care are often from inner city difficulties. And if what are 3 or 4 street blocks, and that's your world, well, that really constrains not only your vision for the future, but it physically diminishes your own health and well-being, just like you talked about. So when we talk about the whole child, which we do talk about a lot out here, we talk about their physical well-being, getting the sunshine, getting out, breathing, walking and working in the garden. We have gardens here. Okay, we don't need the garden either. Why do we do that? To teach them what it's like to work in the earth. But you're talking about a physical well-being. You're talking about emotional. You're talking about educational. You're talking about spiritual, social. All of these pieces are important. And it's like a car. You don't drive around with three wheels on your car. You make sure you got 4. And we want to pay attention to each one of those areas, because we know that trying to get by on 2 wheels or 3 wheels just isn't going to cut it. And so we love the idea of treating the whole child and caring for the whole child to provide those kind of opportunities for different types of growth. And what you're referring to is exactly that. Yeah, just getting out and breathing and seeing that life can be different, better balance.
I had a wonderful conversation with a friend of mine once who lives here but had a place up north of here. And it was hard for him to get there. So we had a caretaker that was there on a regular basis, but he had cows. And he talked about how you can't just have cows. You got to be with them 7 days a week. You got to listen to them. You got to pay attention to them. So the notion of I've always loved the notion of cows there, because it's teaching responsibility. It's teaching a connection. There's a lot that goes on there that they really get wrapped up in, isn't there?
It really is. And, we've also worked with horses. Equine therapy is very popular, and you don't have to be overly sophisticated to just appreciate the fact that working with a dog, working with animals, but in particular, we've seen this with cattle. You can't push a cow around.
No.
And you certainly can't push a big horse around. And I've seen some of our toughest young men who I love dearly, but when all that, showing off and all the big muscles and everything, and they got attitude, you put them next to a big horse and say, all right, let's see how this works out. And they have to find a way, right, to connect. And the way you do that is not by force. You learn to temper your system. You learn to manage that. And so all of these things, and like you said, responsibility. Two things produce what we think of as more reality. Sometimes the world's too distracted by challenges, and sometimes it's too distracted by rewards, right? If you've got grandchildren, and I do, it's a lot easier to slip them a reward and keep on moving when what they need sometimes is a challenge. And so the balance of challenges and exposing them to new things that stretch them. Hey, getting on an airplane is not easy if you're 15 years old for the first time and you take off. That can be scary. But you also challenge them with rewards, or you let them experience rewards. That's a balance of reality. You and I never skated through our career and said, wow, that was a breeze. No, there are things that we face, right? So it's our responsibility in helping children go forward to have a balance between these challenges and rewards. And sometimes the rewards are simple as, a kind word, consistency, affection, support, cheering them on, going to their game, backslap, all of those kind of things. And just being there is sometimes enough. We don't have to do all the bells and whistles. Sometimes just being there is enough. So I think it's a great opportunity. And you're right. Nature and all these tools plays a big part.
So the 12th annual Radiothon is happening next Thursday, July the 11th. And it's to benefit the Palmer home. It's a huge commitment from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. All of the shows, the Gallo Show, Gerard, Rebecca, the sports team, will all be focused on bringing attention to the Palmer home and asking you to make a contribution to this private nonprofit. And you'll be glad you did. If you have any inclination at all, look it up, look up the Palmer home and considering giving to this important radiothon that happens next Thursday. Hey, Drake, it's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Always great, Ricky. Take care, and we'll look forward to talking next time. But thank you so much.
You bet. Good luck next week. God bless you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Man, I appreciate it.